Music Matters. Mr. Jev in the building. How you doing, my friend? Thank you for doing this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Good to see you again, bro. How's your trip been so far? You're out here in LA for like a week, you said?
Yeah, a week.
Nice, bro. How's it been so far?
It's been good. You know, I've been doing sessions, meeting up with like creatives, just linking up with different creatives and making art. And, you know, it's been good so far. LA is very spacious.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah. I'm more used to a East Coast vibe where it's more like hop on a train and get to where you're going, where it's more like driving.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Is that
interesting?
Because I know you live out in Canada. I mean, I would imagine just because of the weather, but is New York way more comparable to Canada than LA? I would imagine, right?
Yeah. Very. Even with the weather, just like the energy a little bit. I think New York has a certain energy that can't be replicated anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just like very, I don't know what it is, but it's just like you just get a certain amount of energy where it's kind of like you just feel the need to like do something.
Yeah, dude, 100%. Yeah, the place is like it's very catered, I think, to people who just want to go.
Yeah, I think that's the type of person I am.
Yeah.
I really love to just kind of always be busy and just be like, I don't know, just be doing something.
Yeah,
I don't know, it's just a weird feeling.
I've only been there like technically for like a real trip like one time.
Oh yeah.
And I went with my girlfriend, and when we went, like, everybody always says, like, you know, they always talk about the pace or whatever, but it's crazy to me how immediate the pace is. Like, you get there and like it feels like everything is engineered in this way where you're just supposed to move fast. Like, it's cold as fuck, so nobody wants to like walk too long, so everybody's walking super fast.
Facts.
And then they're always walking to like the subway, which is like the most efficient public transport system probably in America.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's all catered to moving quick, I think. And I don't know, the energy in LA is so vastly different. It's so much slower, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends on like personality types too. I feel like New York is more catered to, like you said, people that are on the go and people that want to, you know, just be doing stuff constantly. LA, like you said, is very chilled. It's also weird how it translates into music. Where in New York, even like hip hop, where New York is more like a like a, you know, boom bap, just rapping, where West Coast is more like laid back a little bit. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I think that's always like, it's funny, like I love hip hop a lot, so I think just my brain goes here a lot too. But it's like the way the two cities kind of like make music is almost emblematic of the way people live there. And I mean, like, even down to like the things they can't do, right? Like, I was talking to a friend recently who's from New York, and she was talking about, she's like a dope like singer songwriter musician, and we were talking about this, and she was saying how like when she moved to LA, she was really, really in awe of how different drums sounded here, because in New York, like, the houses are just so small. No one lives in a house. They live in apartments. So they can't like live record any drums for anything very often, unless you're like a big artist in a big studio. So it's all just programmed. So even down to that, it like really changes the way that people are making music out there from like a process stance as well.
Facts. I think even tying it back to like Canada, where it's like it's very cold, everyone is always inside. I feel like there's a lot of DIY that happens in Canada too.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of people just trying stuff. So in Canada, I wouldn't necessarily has a specific sound. I would say it does have like individuals inside Canada that have their own individual sound, and that kind of, you know, Canada is kind of like the umbrella, and underneath that it's just like different individuals with different sounds. So that's why Canada doesn't necessarily have a New York East Coast sound,
like a regional sound.
It doesn't really have that. It kind of have more like individuals underneath that kind of have their own sound and their own movements. So you find a lot of people creating like groups and collectives, and people just kind of go about it that way instead of just having like a regional sound or anything like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's always interesting because I kind of feel like Canada musically is it in my brain, like, it should be very parallel to the States. Like, in my brain, like, they're similar enough countries, I think, to where they should like be kind of, I don't know, like operating in the pop landscape in like a similar place. But I also, as an outsider, feel like I've noticed that about Canada. Like, a lot of the times it doesn't feel like it feels like there's individual movements with specific artists out there, opposed to like scenes coming out of different parts of the country. And maybe that's because of maybe that's because like honestly, I'm not too familiar with the way that Canada's broken up, but I know it's in territories, correct?
Yeah.
So like, I would almost imagine because there's so many states, maybe that contributes to like the amount of different regional sounds that are here. Are there like that many territories in Canada?
It's weird because the way I look at Canada is like it is a big country, but the population is not big.
Yeah.
So it's limited. Even when it comes to hip hop, it's not like a popular. It's a popular genre, but it's not like a genre that most people listen to, because it's scattered around. So it's like pop, folk, country, even R&B there and there, and Afrobeats and all those type of things, and plus hip hop. So hip hop in America is more like the center. It's more like I want to say like the leading genre, low key.
Definitely one of them.
Yeah, for sure. Where in Canada it's more, I don't know. It's weird because in Canada it's like we all have. There's also a lot of immigrants.
Yeah.
So a lot of immigrants
like from other places.
So a lot of them also bring their own influences. Like me actually, a lot of them also bring their own influences. Like Nigerians will bring like Afrobeats, Jamaicans will bring like dance hall, and they'll infuse that with hip hop or like pop, and that would become like their own like sound, and it's beautiful. But I'll say like the main places in Canada that listens to like mainstream hip hop or makes mainstream hip hop would be like Ontario, which is like Toronto, Ottawa, Edmonton, just like different places like that. Even like Montreal, Quebec, and the French side that makes a lot of like French hip hop, francophone music. K-Tronada comes out of there too. So I'll say those are like the main places. And the other thing about Canadian artists is like a lot of times when we do start growing and building, we usually come to the States.
Yeah.
So it's like it's hard for Canadian music to grow because most artists usually just transition over to the States.
Yeah, I feel like I've experienced that on like a micro level because I'm from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I guess the three of us all are, but I feel like this is a trend a lot of people see where it's like it gets difficult for the Bay Area music scene to get a lot bigger and grow and like expand a lot because it's similarly to how Canadians will just come to the States. Yeah. People in the Bay Area will just kind of come to LA. Because it's close enough. It's 5 hours away. That's kind of just like, whatever. Let's go give it a try. That it kind of seems to like seep up all of the culture from the Bay Area very often, which is, it's a kind of, sometimes it sucks.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think it's like the industry standard at this point because like LA has the industry, it has the infrastructure, and it's also a creative city that encourages creativity and artistry. Same with Canada. It's like there's not too many record labels or anything. Right. I think Sony might have like a headquarter in Toronto or something, but it's not a lot of that. So a lot of people do come to like the States for opportunities and just like more work. But just like smaller cities, smaller places, most times you won't find a lot of creatives, and so you won't feel you kind of feel alone sometimes. Yeah. So it kind of forces you to move to like these big cities to kind of have that, creative energy and just to be more creative.
Has that been a struggle for you? Because I know you're not originally from Canada. Because you're from the Congo, right? And then you went to South Africa, right? And then you came to Canada.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So like how old were you when you moved to Canada?
18.
Okay, gotcha. 18. So like end of high school age?
Yeah, after I graduated high
school.
Gotcha.
Okay, so kind of coming there after all that and having lived so much life prior to that, and coming to Canada when you're kind of already grown and not having like things like school to be able to meet people and stuff like that. Was it ever difficult to grow a bit of a musical community out there? And it's interesting because your music, a lot of it, at least for me, it seemed like it spread very fast online specifically. You got like a lot of editorial support, a lot of Spotify love, like a lot of like real hip hop heads on the internet seemed like really love Jev music. So it's interesting that there wasn't like, do you feel like there was any bit of a local scene around you at all, or was kind of everything happening through the internet? And how was that experience for you?
So I don't think there was a local scene. Once I came to Canada, it was weird because once I came to Canada, I was trying to figure out like where all the music people were, like just trying to build my community around me, just trying to be a part of a community. But then I was in college too, so I was trying to figure like being in school and just being like in university and struggling with that and just trying to figure out like, oh my God, I really hate school. I'm trying to do music and stuff like that.
Where were you in college?
I was in for like 4 years for like computer science before I switched to marketing.
Nice, bro. Yeah. Where'd you go?
Carlton.
Okay, cool.
Actually, no free promo. Yeah, it was cool. So I did that, and I was trying to figure out like where all the music people were, and I couldn't find it for a while. Also, like the pandemic happened like just like 2 years after I got there, so it was like just being at home. So I ran to the internet and just tried to figure it out. It was funny because I started off on the internet just trying to be like a music curator.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was making playlists, and I was literally just putting up playlists, putting like smaller artists on the playlist, connecting with them that way. Connecting with producers, like just showing love to like their beats. So I wasn't really promoting my music. At that time, I actually quit making music. So it was just like me promoting like playlists. If J. Cole has a song out, I'm promoting that. I'm like, yo, J. Cole did this. So I was kind of coming from it from like a very like music curator, content
like
creator,
like
a fan perspective. And then once I started making music again, I just started promoting my music in a way where it's kind of like I put my music on like the top of the playlist.
Yeah.
So a lot of people would come into it, and it's like the first song they listened to was me, but they didn't really know it was me up until I started like claiming like, yeah, this is my music and stuff like that. So my account literally transitioned from like a fan music curator account to like an artist account. So I built the fan base off like just like similar minds and like similar music taste, and then I just introduced them to my music after that. So it was my bad.
You're good.
It was super easy after that. So it seemed fast, but it was very like calculated too.
That's fascinating, bro. I think there's a lot, like there's so much selflessness that comes with being a fan. I think it's really beautiful for that reason. Like I always really try to like be unapologetically a fan. Always. That's very like core to me as a person, and I feel like one of the poisons that I've noticed a lot in LA is folks who like will be gigantic fans of people, but like for whatever reason they don't want to admit it, or they don't want to act like that, because like I think to a degree like you do kind of relinquish or honestly you kind of like accept a bit of a power dynamic when you like agree to be a fan, which is interesting. And I think some people are uncomfortable with that for whatever reason. They're they really like control, or like they don't want to feel like they're looking up to anybody.
That's interesting, because I feel like I'm a fan first.
Me too.
I think, and I also experienced a lot of just like quitting music. So I quit like three times prior. So I'm
gonna turn your mic a tiny bit. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I quit like 3 times. One time in high school, one time again in high school, and then another time like when I moved to Canada, because I was like, let me just focus on college. But during those times, I was still listening to music, and I was still trying to be like a fan, and just like being I don't know, just being like a fan of music, connecting with artists, but just like just being a fan, just trying to support them in any way, but without the intention of like ever coming back to making music. So for me, it was just like, it was weird, because it was just like that was it. It was like nothing. I didn't want anything from it. And then once I became like a music artist, I just kind of continued doing that.
Yeah. What was it that kept bringing you back? Like, or did you just love it so much that it was hard to stay away?
I don't know what it was, because even when I did quit, I was still like writing a lot, and I was still like listening to a lot of music and being like, oh my God, I love how he did that, let me go try that. Just like experimenting, but like not really having the intention to like put it out and release it. So I'd say I quit releasing, but I never quit like just coming up with ideas and trying to be like experimenting with like my sound or anything like that. I think eventually for me, I don't want to release music as often or as frequent, or just being like the music business and industry, because I feel like that's very different than just being like an artist that makes 100%. Music. So I'll say I quit being in like the music industry, and then just kind of like was doing it as like a hobby or a passion. So it was also a lot of that, but what kept bringing me back, I don't know, it was just like everything I tried outside of it didn't work. Like I went to school, I was okay, but there was just like something missing that just, I was like, I only find that in music. I was like, oh, I gotta go back. Even I even tried to be in like the music industry business side of it, like try to be an A&R at one point, try to do like an internship, but it was just it wasn't.
Nothing felt right.
Yeah, it didn't feel right. So it was just like, man, I only get that feeling from like the music, like the fulfillment from like, I don't know, from life or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But I only get that from music.
Dude, I think to like build a long-lasting career in this, you need to have that kind of mentality where it's like every single time you want to stop or you want to leave, like there's just something inside you that won't stop burning. I think that's a really good indication that it is for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think like that those kinds of signs are the things that kind of, I think those are how you find your passions. Those are how you find the things that like you're meant to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I always thought I could replace it with something. I always thought it was like something I just really, really, really love. And I don't know, I just felt like I never thought I would get to this point because I just didn't see it. Because I was in like, for example, like South Africa. I was like, okay, how do I get to a point where I'm like doing stuff? Because the music industry in South Africa is completely different. It's very different from like it might have changed now, but like back then it was very, very, very still gatekeepy vibes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So you know how the music industry, let's say for in America, before like TikTok, before like the internet, was very, an A&R has to be like, could sign you off like you singing off like somewhere in like the mall or something.
Yeah, they go to your show or whatever.
And turn you into a star and turn you into that.
Development
basically.
Yeah.
So a lot of South Africa was kind of like pick and choose at one point. Like, okay, I like you. I'm gonna build you into a star. You have the look. You have this. I could do.
So
you know.
Interesting, bro. That's so. Not to cut you off. That's so interesting to me because I interviewed a rapper named this is a couple weeks ago named Kazuo, good friend of mine. He's from Japan.
Oh yeah.
And he was talking about the music industry in Japan. That's like literally to a T exactly how he described it. So that's super fascinating to me. I wonder if I wonder if the idea of artist dev being dead is like more of an American thing.
It's interesting because I feel like the world is still catching up to where America is in terms of like the music industry. Because right now, American standards like TikTok, like social media basically.
Yeah.
I think like the rest of the world is still very. There's a lot of TikTok happening and like social media happening, but it's still a lot of like real discovery, like A&R or like someone just walking somewhere and like finding talent, singing stuff, and can still develop it and like. They come together and like go to a label, sign a deal, like very old school ways of like doing artist development, but it's still like social media sprinkled somewhere. I feel like America is at a point where it's like it's fully at social media. Yeah, fully at social media.
I'm not sure how you feel about that.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I love aspects of it, but I also think there's like a balance to be struck because I do feel like a lot of the times. A lot of artists that are getting signed right now, especially in the world of majors, I feel like artist development is so dead to the point where you quite literally are signing for a couple records, and if those records don't happen, you just get shelved. And then it just becomes this like self-fulfilling prophecy where like you're just shelved and it's difficult to get off that shelf. And I don't know, I think there's something to be said about A&Ring through social media. I think it's beautiful, but I think the problem is that a lot of labels have like replaced that kind of A&Ring, that kind of like internet-based like online A&Ring. They've just kind of began only doing that and just entirely abandoned development. They're not pursuing things that they're like, this is at a ground floor level and we can bring this, you know, from a 3 to a 10. They're finding things that are already at a 9, and then they're kind of basing their value off the fact that they can take it from a 9 to a 10, which in reality is very little work. You know, so it just kind of, I think, creates this, I don't want to say monopoly, but I don't like labels having more means of control over artists.
Which is interesting because I feel like labels don't have that much control as back then.
I think they're losing it.
A lot of it, I think the whole thing about social media and just like artists on social media, I feel like there's two types of artists right now. There's like artists, and then there's like content creators.
Totally.
So I feel like there's a lot of labels 100%. Are signing like a lot of content creators that just like made a catchy song. And to be honest with you, I just feel like it's a new industry. It's like the old industry is still there. Where like real artists, quote unquote, are still getting signed. But it's like a different game. You just kind of have to switch your strategy, to be honest. So a lot of artists are staying independent now. They're building like their own businesses. And a lot of people are still signing, taking bigger checks and stuff. But it all depends on like the strategy that you have right now. I do think artists have way more control right now.
I agree,
I think, and I'm grateful for social media because I feel like without social media, I don't think I would be here, to be honest. I think a lot of artists like me that come from like smaller places or like really unknown places, don't have a place or like a voice to kind of like shine, because it's like, especially, let's say for example, Ottawa, for example, a lot of people haven't heard of Ottawa, and it's not like a real strong music industry where it's like if you pop in Ottawa, you're like making noise in the industry or anything like that. So a lot of us from smaller cities, even like maybe like the Bay, I don't know how it is over there, but a lot of us have to like go to social media, be creative with social media, switch our strategies, and kind of be heard. And that way we can kind of like, you know, start building our businesses, start gaining traction for our music and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, but it's necessary.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think like when labels begin to like lose their reins of control, right? Like I think I always think about it like distribution, they've entirely lost. Like DistroKid and Too Lost and like these online distro companies have effectively like ruined the label's ability to gatekeep distribution. And then you think about marketing, like TikTok has ruined marketing. So really all they have left is capital, which is why I think like, you know, it's kind of a cliche at this point, but people will be like labels are loans, you know, which is like true. Labels are banks to a degree. But I think the only reason they are banks is because they've almost entirely abandoned artist development, because they've no understanding how to do it anymore. In the internet age, these especially majors have such like non-savvy like digital marketing teams that it makes more sense to hire some kid that like understands the internet than some 35-year-old A&R that just doesn't. You know, and it's interesting though, because I think them only kind of having capital is like the one means of control that they have left. It kind of effectively turns them into like venture capitalist companies. Like they're not even really in the music business, they're almost like investing now.
Facts. Which is kind of funny, because I think it should have always been like that.
For sure.
I think labels overdid it with like just owning artists, like everything. It's always should have been like a 50-50 business. It should have been like fair from the beginning. If it was fair from the beginning, TikTok and all these other stuff wouldn't exist. They did it to themselves, honestly.
100%.
I think moving forward, it's gonna be a lot of there's still gonna be artists that sign. Like signing is not bad. That's another thing. Signing is not bad. If you do get a good deal, I think you should sign. Labels offer like a structure that you can't get from anywhere, where it's like you could go global, you could do radio and all those little things that you, if you care about, you should do. I just think it all comes down to the terms. If the terms are good, then you should definitely sign. Signing is like, I don't know, it's a dream for a lot of artists still. So they should like, if they do it, it should be fair. Like, I'm not opposed to signing at all. It just has to be like, make sense and fair. The other part of it is like staying independent is not for everyone too. Staying independent is a very slippery slope. It really comes down to like how you are as an artist. If you know like you're a very perfectionist type, you really have to understand how to go about it, because being independent is gonna come with a lot of like taking L's and just like learning the business on the go. That's why I always tell artists to always kind of surround yourself with people that know the business better than you. Lawyer, manager, whatever it is, just to kind of understand it as you go forward. And also just try and find like a business structure that works for you. That could be independent, that could be signing, that could be Indified, that could be Too Lost. But understand like your work ethic. Some artists just want to stay in the studio and just create, and so find like a business partner or something that you trust and kind of go about it that way. It could be a label, a manager, Too Lost, A&R, United Masters, anything. And some artists want to be a part of like their entire infrastructure, music, business, agreements, everything. So I'd say find a way to maintain that control, find a way to find capital, and because capital is needed too still. So you still have to be creative with it. So I think a lot of artists let their creativity end in the studio. You kind of have to expand your creativity to like your business deals, to your infrastructure, even your content, how you make content.
100%.
So just constantly being creative and going about it in different creative ways. That's what I try to do. Even with the marketing, that's what I try to do. Just always being creative. That's why I call myself like a full-time creative, part-time rapper. And just constantly just being creative with it.
Bro, yeah, damn, there were a lot of gems in that. I really held on to the one thing I really took away from that is that I entirely agree with you that like your business as a musician can be a million different things. Like, you know, harking back to what you were saying earlier, there are some musicians that are really just content creators. There are some musicians that like their business is production. There's some where it's like they make very radio friendly pop music and they've just found a really a really good way to get a really good deal with a major, and they've gotten a lot of money from it, and that major has pushed their radio friendly music, and that's their business. There's not like I think some people view the music industry in the same way they view college, which I think can be silly sometimes. I always talked about this when I was in high school, but it felt like, maybe this is just my school, I don't know, but my high school really felt like the only thing they kind of pushed in terms of like paths after high school was just like a 4-year traditional university. And I always felt like there were so many other options, and it was strange that only one was discussed. And I feel the same way about the music industry. For a long time, like the one goal was like, I want to blow up and get signed. And a lot of artists kind of saw that as like a means to an end, you know, like that was the end of the road. But I think so many of these artists got to that point, and then instead of jumping off from there, they actually digressed very often. I think that happened, you know, a ton in the early 2000s, and I think that kind of cemented this like innate distrust in labels that we're kind of experiencing now. And like you said, like I think it's silly to be blanket statement about anything. You shouldn't be blanket anti-label, you know, you shouldn't be pro-label, anti-label. You should be pro-fairness, and you should be pro like contracts that have good terms that like make sense for the artist and what their business is. You know.
Just to add on to what you say, I feel like a lot of artists, producers, everybody that makes music often run to the music industry because they feel like, oh, I make music, I want to be in the music industry. But like, there's so many avenues that you could go into. I feel like a lot of producers, great producers, a lot of them don't belong in the music industry. A lot of 100%. Them belong in the film industry, 100%. Making syncs and doing placements and stuff like that. But they feel like, oh, I make music, I make beats and stuff, so I should be sending my music out to artists to jump on. But it's like, that sounds like a beat for a trailer or something. You know, you should go into syncs and making soundtracks for movies and stuff like that. But everybody has a very narrow mindset. It's kind of like, I have to do this because I saw someone else do this. Even when it comes to artists, a lot of artists, like, you make radio friendly pop, that's good, that's your thing, you're good at it, so just double down on it. But a lot of people are very afraid of like what other people say. Like, people are very quick to be like, oh, this is real art, this is real music, this is real this. But it's like, bro, it's not that deep. It's really not that deep. Like, I know like the type of music I want to make really great rap music, so that's what I kind of double down on. But if you're like, you make rap but you also want to do like R&B type music, just do it. Like, if it makes you feel good, honestly, just go for it, just do it. A lot of people are really afraid of like the labels that other people are going to put on them, like, oh, he's doing this, oh, he's doing that. Just like kind of do it, but also kind of know like where your strengths are, like what your weaknesses are, and either work on your weaknesses or double down on your strengths. And it's like, you just kind of have to know yourself. That's why people talk about this knowing, like kind of knowing yourself. And that's what I developed. Like, during like the times I quit, I developed like this knowing, like, okay, I know I love making rap music. I know what I feel from it, so let me just double down on making the stuff that I really, really like.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes I'm trying to remember the phrase. It's distance makes the heart grow fonder. I think it, you know, simultaneously, I think distance can often make things more clear. Very true. And that goes for everything. That goes from like, you know, leaving music to like leaving a relationship or like leaving a place, whatever it is. Very often, you're flying too close to the sun and you need to take a step back. I mean, that goes for even just like listening to a mix in a car versus in the studio the day that you recorded it. It's very different. Sometimes you're flying too close to the sun, but I think you're right. I think I definitely felt this way a lot growing up, because I mean, I started doing this when I was 16, and I just sprinted and I just never stopped moving, and I always felt like I needed to find success tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I often found the biggest breakthroughs and the biggest lessons that I ever found, they came when I slowed down and took a step back and like objectively analyzed what it was that I was actually doing.
Yeah.
Instead of just like ramming my head into a wall. You know? So to your point, I think, you know, call it quitting, call it taking a break, whatever, but sometimes taking that step back is the only thing that can give you that clarity. It's the only thing that can give you that lesson, you know?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people are stuck on an end goal that doesn't exist. Like,
yeah, dude. Yeah.
Like a lot of people
for sure.
really, I feel like, for example, I know an artist that was like, oh, the only way I'm gonna feel successful is if I win a Grammy, or if I do this, if I'm gonna. It's like that might never happen.
It's not even in your control.
Yeah, it's not in your. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like it's not in your control. Like so, I think the main objective, or like the main thing I want people to take away from like even this interview is just like you really have to define what success is for you. Is that like you know, making music that you like, and because I accept every consequence or everything that comes with my music. If I make the type of music I make and never reach let's say for example like a Billboard chart or like Super Bowl or anything like that, I'm okay because I'm like making the music that I love and enjoy, and that's like it fulfills me, you know. But I think a lot of people need to figure out like what success is for them. Is that like making the music that you enjoy and love every single day, waking up ready to make some music and push yourself, or is it like Billboard charts, Grammys, and award recognition and all that? And if it's that, then double down on that, go for it, and just kind of understand what that comes with. So it's like you're not surprised when things happen. It's like, you know, like people are kind of stuck in this limbo of like they want to do stuff, but they don't want to be seen doing it. But it's like you gotta embrace being seen and kind of going for it. Yeah.
100%. I think accepting the consequences that you just said.
Yeah.
That's
not
like,
even consequence. That might be the wrong word, but like I don't know what the right word is.
The outcome, I guess. Just accepting the outcome.
Yeah, the outcome.
Yeah, I think accepting the outcome is a good way to say it.
Yeah.
And I think very often, I think the Grammy example is interesting because it's like people will place all this external validation.
Yeah.
Like they'll just need to get it from something that's not even in their control.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that like, dude, if you focus on that for too long, you'll drive yourself insane.
Yeah, if it's out of your control, just release.
Yeah, exactly. I think a big thing too you just touched on is like the difference between music and the music industry, because those really are like vastly different things.
Facts.
And I think you're right. Most musicians, they just get in this mindset where it's like they need to be in the music industry if they're making music, you know, and like that's the only way that they can kind of participate in that art form and somehow make money or make a living off it.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a really common misconception. I think, like you said, like you brought up sync, you brought up like things like scoring and like whatever. There's a million ways to make some kind of ends meet in this industry. There's a million ways to find success in this industry.
Yeah.
You don't just have to do the traditional let me sign to a label and blow up path, you know?
Millions and millions of ways.
Yeah.
You could be a songwriter. You could do there's a lot of like ways people just make stuff. Like it's just incredible just how many things are how many jobs, not even jobs, but just like how many careers are available in the music industry. Like Rick Rubin is the perfect example because I don't even know what he does, but he's a part of the industry and he does it really well.
What does he say? He's like a executive producer.
Yeah, you can give yourself a title and just
DJ Khaled did
DJ Khaled. But I'll say the main thing is just build relationships.
Yeah,
you know, you never know what comes from that, and just like doing everything that feels authentic to you and just going about it that way. That's like the main thing.
Yeah, dude. I mean, think about the amount of musicians that I think about this a lot. Think about the amount of musicians that are just like left field or absent from the music industry. They're just kind of adjacent to it. My favorite example of this is Jack Johnson. Guy has like major hits, like gigantic records. Like he literally did like the Curious George soundtrack. But like bro just lives in Hawaii with his family and like surfs and makes like surfing documentaries.
Yeah.
Or like there's people who like, you know, maybe they're not technically absent from the music industry.
Pig.
Yeah, Peppa Pig.
She's like she makes like crazy like I think she's like her monthly listeners might be in like,
bro, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
So it's just like finding different ways. but just having fun, but making it authentic to you is like the main point.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a big thing too that I harp on this a lot, but I think growing whatever your version of a localized community is around you, and that doesn't have to be like a physical manifestation of it. It can be on the internet as well. Yeah. But finding your base, whatever that is, whether it's like on the internet, whether it's in person, there's a million different ways to find that, and I think that looks different for everybody. And I think like there's some artists, I think this exists in like the punk rock world a lot, especially. There's some artists like on streaming, they're incredibly small. They have like anywhere, well, not incredibly small, but like they're smaller. Like they have from like 100,000 to 300,000 monthly listeners, but they can sell 3,000 tickets. Like Suicide Boys is an example of this. Those dudes like have a cult, man. Like they've effectively created a cult. They literally are selling out arenas. It's nuts, but like you never hear about them in like traditional music industry jargon or whatever. They're never referred to. So there's, I don't know, all that to say there's a million pockets of this industry and a million different ways to be a musician. And like just because you're making music doesn't mean you have to be in the traditional side of the music industry.
Yeah. I'm convinced there's an audience for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm super convinced on that. Like nowadays I listen to music with a different ear because I'm like, you know what? I don't even, there's not even like music that I dislike anymore. It's just like, oh, it's not for me.
Yeah.
There's probably someone out there that's like going crazy to this. It's like probably like the best thing they heard. So it also frees me like in the studio, I'm gonna make something I like. So when I do release it, this might be a bunch of people that hate it, but I know this good amount right here is gonna love it, and that's gonna be my people, and that's it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I saw something you tweeted where you said everybody listens to my music tried to make it at one point. And,
I honestly agree. I mean, yeah.
I found that super interesting. Yeah. Because it definitely feels that way. Like it feels like the Jeb fan base is very much like in this pocket of like kind of whatever you want to call it, like new age lyrical based hip hop, whatever, but like whatever you want to call it. But they do kind of exist in that pocket, and I think that pocket runs like deep. I think the fan buy-in in that genre of music is really high. There's a very high level of it, so it does make sense that you would think, and it would seem like the kind of a lot of people that like wanted to listen to your music were trying to make it as well, because I think they're like, people who are into your genre of music are generally incredibly high-level music fans. Like they just love music, you know?
Definitely. Everybody that loved music so much definitely at one point try to make it. I think I've seen it so much times because it's like I'll talk to someone, like let's say at a show, like, yo, I love your music, da-da-da. I'm like, oh yeah, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. It's like, have you ever tried making music? It's like, oh yeah. So it's like all the time. Even I've noticed certain influencers that are like, let's say music influencers, like that really, really love music and that really enjoy it. Yeah. Turns out they'll be like a DJ or like they'll be like
I mean, Annabelle Klein did this.
Oh yeah, Annabelle. They'll be like a DJ, or they'll be like they used to sing, or they could hold a key or something. Got something. Yeah, they always got something. Or if they try to write like a 16-bar verse or something, something is always there. I know some people are gonna be like, they're gonna misinterpret like what I say and say like they never tried to pursue it seriously, but they could have. True. Yeah. But they definitely have tried to make music and to just out of curiosity. They definitely try to create something and just put it out there, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I guess speaking from experience in that regard, I think like a lot of people who work in music or just do something like this or do whatever, I think like a lot of them like grew up playing music and then just like their interests intertwined in a different way, and it kind of took them away from putting music out and kind of took them towards something else. I will say though, and I think this goes for like producers, this goes for engineers, this goes for managers, this goes for like curators, DJs, whatever. I think there is a there's something really terrifying about pursuing an artist project. There's something really scary about putting yourself out there to that degree and willing to like say, I'm the guy, like take your shots with me, like I'm the guy, I'm the face, I'm here. That's really terrifying. It's really scary. So I will be honest in saying I think there are a lot of people who work in different sections of the music industry, the music world, where like they at some point would have loved to like pursue an artist project, but it's really difficult and it's really scary. And I think sometimes there are other things that people can resort to still kind of flex that musical muscle, but maybe not have to put themselves out there to be that face, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that. I think probably the theme of this episode is probably like don't be afraid to be seen.
Yeah.
I think that's like the main point. A lot of people, the different artists that I've met were like really, really successful, or like just like really, really upcoming and just like underground. Like I think the main difference is like a lot of the successful people that are like big and like they have Grammys and all these things.
Yeah.
They are not afraid to be seen. It's not even the fear of being seen, but it's like the fear of being seen failing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which are vastly different things.
Very different. Because being seen, everyone has a social media or something. They could just like, you know, post. I can be seeing followers, but like being seen failing is very different, because now that brings up like different insecurities and stuff 100%. Like that. So being in the public eye, being like a public figure is a very different job in itself, because like now everything is they looking at everything, not just the music. They looking at how you handle rejection, how you handle stuff not going your way, how you handle like you put a project out and people just trash it, you know. They looking at everything, and it takes a toll on your mental, but like once you let go of that fear of like just being seen, you can literally see like it's almost like a freeing, like, you know, like what do they say, like the phoenix rise from the ash or something. It kind of feels like that. Like honestly, like for me, I still feel like I'm getting there a little bit. I think I'm really, really close to it, but it just takes a lot of just like putting yourself there constantly. Like everything you want is on the other side of is on the other side of fear.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow, that's well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything you want is on the other side of fear. That's incredibly well said. I think that couldn't be more true, dude.
Yeah.
And
it's insane, man.
It's like not only is it fear though, it's like fear and insecurities and like it's like you kind of need to accept that you're going to fail if you want to succeed. I almost think that failure is a precursor to success. I really don't think you can achieve success at a high level without failing in a crazy amount of times before that.
Facts.
But I think people are afraid to fail, and I think, you know, that makes sense. It's a terrifying thing. It's embarrassing, but I think you need to kind of have that humility. You have to have that like selflessness. You have to have that lack of ego, to where like you would rather be seen failing and then eventually succeed than never be seen failing. Yeah,
it's I won't lie, it is hard.
Yeah,
it is incredibly hard. Especially when it's not working. Like for example, let's say TikTok content, or just like people a lot of artists have this fear of putting out content. Yeah, and it's just like a mental thing, because they're like, oh my God, I can't, you know, they feel like, I don't know, it's just like a incredibly hard thing for them. And once I got over that, I was putting content like 3 times a day. It was just like insane, because also a lot of times they are looking at people that know them in real life, and they're like, oh, they're gonna judge me, oh, they're gonna see that I'm trying to pursue a career and take something serious. So a lot of times when they still have that fear, I usually tell people, just like block out people that you know in real life, on socials, whatever, and then just create like an anonymous TikTok or like anonymous IG and just start over.
See what happens.
But yeah, the fear comes from being seen by people that you know, people that know you a certain way. Yeah. So it comes from that. It also comes from just like strangers being able to like just say whatever to you. So
and I think that there's also like a big fear of like them even seeing you fail, because like if you know, if the homie sees you in your TikTok that has 2 likes and know, and the song is like not too hot, they're probably gonna say something. But even if the song is like objectively whatever, if that video has 100,000 likes, they're probably gonna think it's better, even if it's not. Even if the song is the same quality, but you know, with
social proof.
Yeah, it's social proof exactly. But I think like you need to have those early failures to find success, and I think like getting over it in the early days, like being willing to fail publicly in the early days, that really eventually just makes everything else so much easier. Because then when you're taking real risks, like playing in front of 1,000 people, you know, that's a real risk. And then it's like you're prepared because you failed prior and you don't want that to happen again.
Yeah. And I think once you fail once, it just becomes like, oh, I kind of get it. Once you fail, you'll notice that it's not so bad.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, I thought it was going to be like earth shattering. It's just going to be like, oh, but it's actually not that bad. And then you just kind of keep going. And then eventually you'll notice like, oh, it's not as bad as I made it seem in my head. Most times your mind lies to you. And also it's cringe until it works.
Yeah.
It's cringe until it works.
That's huge.
Yeah. So a lot of times you're gonna cringe yourself out, like you don't know what you're doing or stuff like that until it works, and then it's like, oh, everyone's gonna start hitting you. Like that kind of happened to me, where it was like when I was putting content out, it was like 2 likes, 3 likes, 4 likes. People were like, what is he doing? Da da da. I was like, I was getting texts like, bro, come on, stuff like that. But then once it worked, it was like, oh, Jav, it's just like night and day vibe.
Yeah.
So once I saw that in like real time, I was like, oh, it was just like I was just kind of I was doing the right thing. I was in the right lane. I was just kind of kept my head down, focused, and kind of doing it. And then once it worked. Like once it works, like no one can tell you anything because it worked.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's so interesting too, because like we all grow up in whatever field we want to be in, and we all have heroes, right? We all have idols. Like I have my favorite interviewers. I'm sure you have your favorite rappers. Yeah. So it's like you grow up looking at those people, and obviously just implicitly, without even realizing it, when you begin doing it, you're modeling what you're doing after them. That's just what everybody does in every field. But it's like you're doing that. And when you record yourself, or when you interview somebody, or when you punch in or whatever, like you don't feel like them. You don't look like how they feel. Like watching yourself doesn't feel like watching them, and that can be really jarring because it's still you. It's like really hard to get over the fact that it's you doing it. But then at a certain point, you just do it for so long that like you become what you're trying like to become. There's this rapper named Lou out of the Bay Area. He was really sick, and I interviewed him a couple of years ago, and he said something to me that really stuck with me in this regard. He said, I remember when I realized I was the person who I thought I was.
Ooh, that's a bar.
Yeah, and I think about that a lot because it's true. Like, like if you grow up wanting to be this artist, and then every time you record yourself, you're not that artist, eventually you just become your own artist. And then there's some kid who's looking at you, and you're that artist that they wanted to become. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. No, I feel you. I do think you have to have this knowing.
Yes,
this knowing about this confidence that like there's something about this music thing that keeps bringing you to it. Yeah. Sometimes I think I saw a Dave Chappelle interview. He said the first half of your career you chase your heroes, the second half you try and run away from them. And he was like,
that's interesting.
Yeah, he was like, the first half is like where you're trying to mimic their career. What would so and so do? Would they sign? Would they stay independent? Would they do this? Would they do it that way? Would they do stuff like that? And the second half is kind of like where you become your own person, and you just kind of do what you want and kind of go about it that way. So it's interesting.
Yeah, no, that's super fascinating. It's almost like as soon as you realize that they aren't as great as you thought they were, you want to do something else. They're human. Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. Like getting in the music industry, that was always a strange thing to me. It was like when I was a kid, like meeting artists that I enjoyed in any capacity, right, whether them be big, small, somewhere in the middle, whatever. Meeting them, like, to me, it was just like they were these greater than all figures. Like they were like, like almost like non-human. Yeah. And now it's like growing up a little bit and like being around so many of these people, you also realize like, God, dude, they're just human beings. Yeah. Like everybody is just a human being. None of these people are special. They don't talk any different than you. They have the same, like they feel like somebody you've met 100 times before. Yeah. And you begin to realize like we're all pretty fucking similar, man.
Very, very similar. Even going back to like the being human thing. Yeah. I think it's also like the magic of the music industry, because like a lot of these our heroes, let's say for example, a lot of them they come from an old school music industry where it was like they had to be mysterious and mystique, and that kind of builds like like this, I don't know, this
image, I guess.
Yeah, this image of like, oh my God, they're this outer body, outer world type of person, like everything, they know what they're doing, they're geniuses and stuff like that. But once you kind of get into like the industry and just kind of like be around people that work with them, people that know them, it just humanizes them a lot and kind of gives you a confidence like, oh snap, I'm around the person that made that was in the room that this was made, and he's telling me this and that. Nothing bad, but just like humanizing stuff, like, oh, he didn't know he was going to do this key change, but he trusted himself and he did it. So it's like, oh, so I just have to trust myself and do certain things, and just kind of like the knowing again, knowing, and just kind of doing that and going back to it. So it's just interesting learning about your heroes in real time, being in the industry. Sometimes you meet them, sometimes you don't, but it's just, I don't know, it just humanizes them being in the industry, and just like learning about them and everything. So it's funny how life works.
My friend McLean calls it the delusion bubble. That's always what he says. He says, like, a lot of these people, they have to have this delusion bubble that can never be broken. Ooh. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, man. Like, I think, and sometimes it can be like a for better or for worse thing. Yeah. But for better or for worse, you need to know that you can do this. You got to. Even if you can't. Yeah. Like even if technically right now you can't do this, you need to know that you can get to a place where you can, or else you're dead in the water. You're never gonna put in enough work to like make this work. You also have to fucking love it, bro. Yeah. You have to really love it.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't love it, then I don't know what else to tell you, because at the end of the day, that's mainly what you have. Like even after streams and like TikTok followers, IG followers, cosigns, whatever, at the end of the day you have to go home and be like, oh my god, I really love making music. I enjoy it and I love doing it. I'll do it for free, honestly. But it just comes down to it, and then once you understand that, it's like sky's the limit.
Sky's bro the limit. Yeah, no, 100%. Like, and you can't even love it in like the same way that somebody loves a hobby. No. Like, you have to love it to almost like a romantic degree. Like, it has to be the kind of thing that keeps you up at night. Yeah. And I feel like that is the only time you should pursue this. Facts. If there's nothing else in the world that makes you feel this way, you know?
I think the best advice I ever got, I got two pieces of advice that would like change my life. The first one was like, don't take advice. And the second, it was like, don't take advice. And the second was like, you already know what you have to do, so just do it.
It's very true. Wow.
I think a lot of times we go out of our way to ask questions into like, how should I make content? How should I do this? How should I do that? How should I make this type of song? You already know how to do it. You heard it before. You've seen it done before. So you just kind of have to lock in and do it. People want the answers instead of like doing the test, studying, learning, and just finding out for themselves. They kind of want you to spoon feed them the answers. It's like there's no answers. You just kind of have to work your way and find out for yourself like what works for you.
We get in our own way a ton. And we also overcomplicate things dramatically the first time we do them. I remember like one of my favorite examples of this in my life was like, I mean, I've been throwing shows now for like 3-4 years, and I remember before I ever did one, I thought it was the most complicated thing in the world. Before I'd ever done it, the way I perceived it, I was like, this probably takes years. Or like, this is the most complicated, complex thing ever. And then I did it once, and I was like, oh, this is like a series of like text messages and phone calls and emails. And then I realized that, and it really kind of like demystified it in a way.
Yeah, demystify. I like that. Yeah, I think a lot of that needs to happen. I think even for everything in the music industry. I mean, we talk about the music industry, but literally everything that could apply to everything. But
totally.
Specifically for music industry stuff, let's say just starting like a new, starting content, making content. A lot of people are worried and just like they don't know what to do or what to do. It's like the main thing is just starting. Even like a music career, like you want to get signed, you don't know where to go. It's just like just start and just the answers come to you. The answers come to you.
Yeah. And it's also like knowing that if you don't know it now, you have to trust that you'll figure it out. Definitely. That's a lot of it, bro. Yeah. A lot of it is just like, no one knows how the fuck they're going to make this work in the beginning. Nobody. Like, you don't have to. Like, you shouldn't. No one ever has. Yeah. You just have to know that you'll find a way to make it work. You have to commit yourself to that. You have to promise yourself that, really, you know?
Yeah. You definitely have to commit yourself. You also have to remember why you do it in the first place. So it's very important to have a why and understanding like it goes back to like the outcomes that we spoke about. So a lot of people like jump ship early. And for example, like say someone makes music like me, like where it's very boom bap, very like, you know, just rapidy. A lot of them do jump ship and be like, oh, I need to make a certain style of music to get the success. It's like you don't really have to. You just kind of have to understand that, you know, what's meant for you is yours, and it's gonna come to you one way or another. So you just kind of have to understand, don't jump ship too early, and just kind of go, keep steady, and just keep going with it.
A lot of it's trust. I think you really have to trust in something, right? Be that yourself, be that love, be that God, be that music, whatever it is. You really need to like have this sort of blind faith. And I think the second that like delusion barrier is broken with yourself, the second you bring yourself out of that and you crash down to reality, you've kind of lost everything. And you don't want to lose everything. No.
I think a lot of especially with the music industry, I never feel defeated. I always felt, I know a lot of artists do feel defeated and stuff. I always felt like if something didn't go my way, it's just like a round two, so I'm gonna go at it again and just try and figure that out. But I don't know, the music industry is funny, man. I think it's a lot of bullshit, but a lot of it is also just trying to figure stuff out and just trying to make sure like you're good at the end of the day, like the music wins at the end of the day. But that's about it.
What do you think is the biggest lesson you've learned about the music industry throughout the course of you trying to navigate it?
It's important to have a good team. I think like that's number one, because as much as I want to know everything about like the music industry and how everything works, there's nothing beats like a good lawyer. Nothing beats a good lawyer, nothing beats a good manager, nothing beats just whatever it is. Like some people need assistants and stuff like that. Like nothing beats a good like assistant or a good like road manager, tour man. Nothing beats that. Like you can try and do everything yourself. You could try and make your whole album yourself. You could produce it, write all the lyrics. You could like market it, do everything yourself, and it could be successful to a certain extent. But nothing beats having like people that believe in you, people that want to see you win. And I think the hardest part is just finding those people, because everyone is so it's just all over the place with it. So I'll say number one, try and find a good team. Number two, number one is we'll go back to the knowing. And trusting yourself and understanding like no matter what happens, it's you. Like you got this. So, and then number two is probably finding a good team. Number three is putting together a strategy and just trying to figure out like what's not the end goal, but what do I want to be known for? What do I want to be known for? Is it good music, or do you want to be like the most successful artist of all time? Do you want to be what is it do you want to pursue in like the music industry? And then double down on that. Is it like building a touring business and being like successful at touring, or like, you know, just different stuff. Like I know for me, one day I want to venture out into like other creative industries, fashion, film, and stuff. So I'm setting myself up in a way where it's kind of like getting my personal brand out there. So people know me. They know the music too, but also know me, so they buy into me as a person. I can venture out to like fashion and do other stuff, because at the end of the day, I'm just like a creative, and like I never know what my next creative project is gonna be.
Fashion makes sense for you, bro. You have the craziest fits.
Thank you, man. I try.
I've never seen you in a fit that's off fire.
I'm just Congolese too. At the end of the day, you know, because Congolese people, I think a lot
of fashion over there.
A lot, very, very, very. One day I want to start like a fashion week down there.
Cool.
But like the history of Congolese people is like when it was colonized by like the Belgian people, a lot of them took a lot of like the Belgian clothes, like a lot of like the colonizers' clothes and shit like that. So like suits, dresses, and they pimped it out to like kind of have this elegance. In Congo they call it sapologie, la sape. It's in French, and it basically means just like put it on or something like that. I don't really know like the direct translation, but it's like they have a week out there, like a day or two, where like they just,
that's kind of hard. Put it on.
Just put it on and just go crazy. So they max it out. It's like suits. They overdo it, but it's like it works sometimes.
It's sick.
So they put it on coats, ties, like, you know, those pointy ass shoes. They just put things on, and it's like, it's very expressive.
That's really cool.
Really cool. Like this documentary about it on Amazon Prime that really explains everything. These people are like in poverty, but like that one day where it's like everyone comes out. It's like, you know how they have like the rallies, like the Puerto Rican rallies, like in New York, like Cinco de Mayo
and what's the Louisiana one called? Fuck. Why is this giving me Mardi Gras?
Yeah, stuff like that. So they literally have it in the street, and like people come out in their best fit.
Yeah,
just take pictures.
That's
but like
sick,
it's fun because it's like fashion is like a political statement, but it's also like a very embracing like your individuality and just like So like a lot of Congolese people around the world, it's crazy. But a lot of Congolese people around the world, like a lot of them, you notice like they're really into fashion, but it's not just because they want to put on clothes and look good. It's just like expression, political statement. It's just like a beautiful thing. Yeah, dude,
I really want to talk more about that. That's super interesting to me. But I wanted to wrap back around to something you were saying about the team thing, which I think is really fascinating to me, because I think I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like I'm kind of like a music history like like I really love like music history. But when I think back about like artistically, not necessarily in terms of like popularity, but the artists that really changed the landscapes in different genres creatively, and I think about their teams, all of them had teams that were never like rooted in business. It never feels like it always feels like their teams were incredibly rooted in like the artistic integrity of what it is that they were doing, and because they were all just so laser focused on that generalized goal, it kind of feels like they were more like friend groups than they were like teams, which is interesting because I think about like the modern iteration of like the artist team, right? Yeah. Be it like, you know, their manager, A&R, their TM, their filmmaker, their creative director, whatever. That kind of modern iteration of the artist team, sometimes they're just like plug and play people that come from a label, or sometimes they're plug and play folks that come from a management company, and kind of via like they're just near the artist via proxy of their job, which is so vastly different than like an artist in the 80s or the 90s just like finding a way to plug and play all their best friends into this weird pocket that creates this like real community.
Very strong.
And I think that's like a really, really, really vast difference between like the modern artist team and like the artist team of the past, maybe. And you know, I think it's cool though, because I do feel like when you think about like the artists that really change things, the artists that the kids right now are saying like, I want to do that when I get older. They're all just gigantic communities. I think the very obvious one here is Brockhampton, where it's like just a gigantic community of artists that like a bunch of kids look to and are like, I want to do that. That's something different in rap that's really cool to me. You know, Odd Future, I think, was another huge one where it's like that's like a, you know, even more so than that being like Taco, Tyler, Earl, Domo, whatever. It wasn't really about that. It was about like them as Odd Future.
Wu-Tang?
Yeah, another one for sure.
Wu-Tang, yeah.
It's just like groups of people, and it's always based in like this outward brand and this outward friendship and this outward community, way more than business. So I don't know. I was just thinking about like the difference that artist teams or the different way that artists' teams are kind of oriented now versus how they were oriented in the past.
So to answer that, I'll say a lot of artists back then became successful really young.
True.
So they were still like hanging out with their friends and on a day-to-day. So it was like 18, 17-year-olds blowing up. It's like the closest person to them is like another 17, 18-year-olds. Like, and they just build together. Right now, I think artists are blowing up older. So 25-year-olds. Like Doechii, she just won a Grammy. She's like 26. You feel me? Like maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it would have been like a 18-year-old or something. Like Whitney Houston was really young.
Yeah, bro.
Really young. Like
she was too young, man.
Aaliyah was really young.
Was incredibly young too.
So a lot of people were really young, and it was just like a lot of their families, momagers, and the fathers would become like Beyonce. Beyonce's dad was her manager at one point. So it's like it was really a family thing, a friend thing, and I think right now because of the internet, like that, I think a lot of artists are blowing up later. So a lot of them are coming more a little professional, like they have like an A&R or like a more professional person, which is either good or bad depending on how you see it. I think for me, you need a mix of both. Because I think back then a lot of people did get screwed over, and a lot of people didn't get credit for a lot of their contributions to certain artists and stuff like that. That's why you see memoirs coming out later on. But I think you need a mix of both. I think for me, how I'm going about it, I'm very patient with it. I'm just noticing, I'm looking at different people very differently, seeing if they have potential. Because sometimes you just want your friends to be your friends.
100%.
You know,
that's very true.
Yeah, and it's a thing where it's kind of like.
That shit gets difficult, bro.
Yeah, it gets really difficult.
This industry too, because there's such a small. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's all good.
But there's such a small niche amount of people that care about this enough to make it into their career.
Yeah.
Enough people that are crazy enough to do it. That's like you want to be friends with all of them. But it's also like. Some of them you just gotta work with, you know. So it's like this weird fine line where it's like it's so easy, especially in the artist world, bro.
Yeah.
It's so easy to like cross the lines between like manager, friend, producer, songwriter, somebody has points on my record, somebody, you know. It's so complicated.
Yeah. So it's because and a lot of artists do they take things very, very personal because this is our art and it's our personal, you know.
Personally, it's emotional.
Yeah. You know. So sometimes I think, like I said, you need a mix of both. So I do believe that if you do build your team, like the way I'm going about it, I'm very patient with it, and I'm just looking at very. Some people hit me and they're like, "Yo, they want to work," and I just fill them out and just see if it's like if it's gonna work. If it's not gonna work, then I'm cool. We could just be homies. But I've met a lot of like cool people on the business side that have just been amazing. I know I met this lawyer one time in Toronto. He was just like great. He came to a show, like he didn't have to come, and he just came up to and we spoke. I didn't even know he was a lawyer, but he ended up giving me his card, and I searched him up, and he's like this big time lawyer. I was like, oh my God, it would be great to have someone like that on the team, you know. Even like the lawyer I have, Lisa, she's like really, really good because she's just like, she gives me advice on certain stuff. And then even like my manager, it's like the homies, but it still feels like a very professional, you know, there's a professional aspect to it where it's kind of like we could be cool, but we could also be very business partnery, very like professional and go about it that way.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I think you need a mix of both. I think you do need some friends because like this music business, it does get really lonely, especially if you don't have people that are like your homies or anything. You don't have people to talk to things about because there's a lot of things that are going to happen that you need. You need that conversation to happen with the homies and just like talk about stuff like, yo, did you see that? Or like, you know, things like that.
Did you see that like all of the like you just like whatever like, you see that this entire label just got dissolved? Like, no one in the real world gives a fuck about that.
That's what I'm saying. So you need like a mix of both where you can like talk about it. And
what am I gonna do? Like fucking approach my cousin and be like, yo, did you see like Elektra got dissolved?
Bro, they don't care.
I don't give a fuck.
They don't care. Like and some of your homies also have lives. I think like with this is very artist centric, so they kind of have to let go of their families to kind of focus on you a little bit. So they have lives. So some of them, you know, they're in college and they're just doing their thing. They also have goals and dreams that they want to pursue. So they can't just give that up to come and be a part of your team and be your number one guy and stuff like that, you know? So
100%,
you gotta be mindful of that.
There's something to be said, I think, too, about like as an artist, having your team be like a little separated and then like finding that level of camaraderie just amongst other artists. I think there's something to be said about that. And you know, if you guys clash and work together in something, that's cool, but it can be a single, and then you know, there's no reason that you can't just do a feature with somebody and then you should be homies for the rest of your life. You know, I
think a lot of the people I've worked with have become like just random conversations. There's an artist by the name of Darian Harris. I work with him
on the new record, right?
Yeah. He's one of like me and him, like we've been friends for like 2-3 years, and we never worked before until I was like, oh. We never worked, and like we just ended up doing a song together. So we did 2 songs, one for my project, one for his. But like at the end of the day, like me and him are just cool. We're homies. We're not like artists. Like we're always trying to work and make music together. Another one is like August Charles. It's just like a homie. He reached out like early on, and then we just stayed in contact and we just like became friends after that. Like there's so many like bangs, Woke Studios. That's a Woke Studios collective in Ottawa. That's like the homies just like connecting. So it's like bangs, Kareem, Chandy, Cass, Chime, Mo, like just homies that are artists, but we don't really have to work and make music all the time. Like we can just like chill. It's just like different people I've met over time where it's like oh, we have things outside of music that we have in common. It's like, oh, we could just like be homies. We don't have to just constantly work on music. Sometimes we just go to the studio, vibe out. Hey, what do you think about this? Like music and stuff like that. But it's like you just kind of have, because some artists are very business oriented.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to work. I just want to make music with you, and that's it. And you go about your ways. But some artists want to build relationships, and I think that's like the way the best music is made, in my professional opinion. But outside of that, I think the best friends, especially in the music business, is gonna come from like other creatives. Yeah.
It can be hard to only have friends in the industry you work in as well, and I think that's something very particular to the music industry, because like, you know, even if let's take like a doctor, for example, right? Even if a doctor's passion is medicine, it's a very different kind of passion, I would say. Like, if it's your career, you're probably not going home and playing like Operation, you know, but like it's very different as like a musician, where it's like, I think there's a really special kind of like buy-in that comes with art, where people are so emotionally attached to it. Like, it is such a vulnerable and emotional and close to your heart thing that I don't think there's very many musicians that really love this that can just like go to work and come home and that's just that. You love this shit, man. Like, I know I can't. But it's simultaneously like you need some sort of separation, not only in like a personal level, but also in like a friendship level. Like, do you in like up in Ottawa, do you have a good friend, a good like, group of friends that are kind of like outside of music, just like kind of like, you know, just friends you made in other ways and stuff?
Definitely. I think I have a lot of people, friends, and just like that don't really care about music. So we just like talk about like other stuff. It kind of keeps me grounded. So where it's kind of like we just talk about like movies and like random friend stuff. But like, it's funny because like when I'm out with like other, let's say for family, for example, where they don't really they're not in the music industry, they don't really care about it or anything like that. And just like the conversations I'll have with them, it's interesting, man. And it's also interesting to like observe them and see like the type of music they listen to, and just see like what peeks through on that side, where like people don't really just care about music or live in diehard fans of music. It's just interesting to see how what they're listening to like passively, and just like what they think about certain situations in the music industry. It's just like very interesting and very refreshing to see it in real time, because those are the real consumers of music.
Dude, that's
not like
a great point.
Not like the diehard fans like us. But yeah, those are like the real guys. And just to even random conversations in the Uber, just like with the Uber driver, just seeing like what the outside world thinks of music and how they're going about it. So it's interesting.
That's a really good point, bro. And I think that's something that like this industry gets wrong a lot. They like cater their choices and their decisions. They'll like make them based on the guise of like this hypothetical fan that just is not true. Like they'll base that fan off of like you or me or one of us, you know, like, and it's like none of us are the target audience for really anything 95% of the time that a major is pushing. There's very select situations where that may be the case, but it's very rare. The vast majority of stuff is being, you know, it's supposed to be peddled to the masses. It's not supposed to be peddled to like the really niche consumers, because those people will always consume. Why would you spend your resources on somebody who you already have in the palm of your hands, you know?
Bro, that's so deep, because a lot of music artists make music for other music artists. They're like, bro, oh, this percussion right here is I have to turn up the reverb on that. It's just like
this hi-hat.
This hi-hat I was like, bro, they won't even notice it. So it's like a lot of people make music for a lot of music artists, and like that's why like their music is revered in like the music community.
Which is also cool.
And it's like fulfilling, because like your peers love your stuff, but then the masses that don't really care about how the hi-hats sound, they don't really know the difference. Like I have a homie that's like an engineer, and he has like a Sony, I forgot the name of like the XM something.
The XM5s, the headphones.
So he has like the equalizer app where he kind of like tunes his headphones to like have the best sound and quality, and it's like, bro, that's fire. And then he's like, he was trying to do it for like his sister who really doesn't care about music at all, and she was like, man, let that go. I just want she is like Apple the wired ones, and she's like, let me just listen to my music. I don't need all that. And I was like, yeah, bro, it's like a lot of like consumers just want to listen to music and feel good and go about their day. They just want a soundtrack to their lives and go about their day. Whereas us, it's like, I'm not even a perfectionist anymore. Yeah. Because I'm like, I let it go because it's like, I want to work to a point where it's like, it sounds really, really good and just kind of let it go. Whereas other people are going to like try and fix every single, I think mistakes are beautiful. Yeah. So everybody's, they just try and make it sound as perfect as possible, to the point where it's like, at that point you're just making music for like other artists. Yeah.
Mario, do you remember who was on the podcast who was talking about their mom and they played them a collection of different hi-hats? Do you remember that? Was that Kazuo? I don't know. Yeah. There was someone I was talking to on the podcast recently, and they said they were talking about this, and they said they did this thing where they asked their mom about like what they thought about a hi-hat, and then their mom goes like, oh, like what's a hi-hat? And then he explains it. And then I'm trying to remember who this was. Damn, I don't remember. But this person was like, their mom just thought that like every rapper that ever like recorded a song, like none of that could be done digitally, and like and there was only like one kind of drum set that people were playing, so it was just like, it's like all the drums in every single song were like recorded live. And, like,
no, it's bro.
But what's crazy is the person I was talking to is like an amazing, like I can't remember who it was, but they're like an amazing producer. Yeah. And he had this moment of revelation where he was like, bro, my mom has no idea what I do every day.
I'm telling you, it's just kind of like, imagine being a doctor, and you have all these medical terms, and like you know how to save someone's life. It's like, just save my life. I don't really care how you do it. Just save my life. So it's like, you have to have this. I don't know who I was talking to about this, but like spoon feeding the audience a little bit.
That's true.
It's kind of like, I think Drake is really good at this, where he kind of like knows how to make music for the masses and spoon feeds them, but he also knows how to really lock in and make music for like other artists where it's like revered in like the music industry. That's a skill, by the way,
for sure,
to make music where you can spoon feed the audience. Where it's kind of like a 5-year-old kid can sing along. That's a skill.
That's very much a skill.
That's a really skill that like I think goes really unappreciated. And I think a lot of going back to like labels signing content creators are really good at this, actually.
Yes, 100%.
So that's why I never like try and hate on them, because like they are really needed, because like the music industry is, you need that so that artists like me that kind of like make more music that are centered towards like other artists per se can exist too. So it's kind of like a 50-50 thing, where it's like I want let's say I have a kid one day, I want my 5-year-old to sing along to like a Taylor Swift song.
Of course,
just have fun, I don't want him to sing along. I mean, to kind of like listen to like
Bros,
a JPEG
listen
Mafia.
To Mike.
JPEG Mike. It's like Earl Sweatshirt. It's like, I mean, it's great music, but it's like, bro, it's like I want them to like sing in the shower and just vibe out too, But yeah, it's just a beautiful industry that we're in. It's like a beautiful tragedy industry. Where it's kind of like, you can make a song and it goes crazy, but it's like other artists will be like, that shit is trash, because it's like you didn't have a bridge, you didn't have a hook lasted 4 bars instead of 8. Where it's like,
I don't hear any dissonant chords.
Oh yeah. I hate the distortion on his voice. I hate how it was mixed on that. I was just having a conversation actually with someone about the Leon Thomas album, and they were hating on like how it was mixed, and I was like, bro, it's just like a stylistic choice that works. Just let it go, right? And it's like sometimes you just kind of have to just kind of, I don't know, just let it go. Just, there's a freeing aspect to it of just making music. Sometimes I'm trying to lock in and really make push the envelope of like technique and like learning stuff, but sometimes I just want to make some fun stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's room to be both those artists, I think.
Facts.
I think people get this notion in their head, like they have to just be one of those.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is true at all.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of artists, sometimes they'll make amazing things that just, they never see the light of day because they don't fit whatever this like preconceived notion that like their brand is, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I never want to get boxed in ever.
Yeah.
Like, I never want to get boxed in because once you get boxed in, I think you're done. Because now there's no way you can like expand your creativity, your tool set. Or you can't. I write lyrics sometimes and I'm like, oh, this is perfect for like a pop song.
Yeah.
You know, and I just kind of leave it there and like maybe one day it'll come back to me. But like sometimes I write lyrics. I love to like do storytelling songs. Sometimes I write that I'm like, oh, this is great for like storytelling. How can I simplify it? How can I do this? Just like constantly trying to improve your style, but doing it in a way where it makes you a better artist and not necessarily just like takes away from your artistry. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, I think that point that you were talking about where like the vast majority of these people like they're not listening to anything but like the very basic elements of the song or they don't even realize what it is they're listening to. That's totally fine, and I think that's a great thing. Yeah. But I think there's like that always becomes like even more apparent to me when I, as somebody who like, this is my life and it's all I do every single day, and it's been that way for the past 10 years. Like every single day, all I think about is music. Years. Yeah. And I mean like a long time I've loved music like this, but I this concept becomes even more apparent to me when somebody approaches me and they'll show me an artist with like 10 million monthly listeners and I'm like, oh yeah, I've never heard of them. And then like they'll go to like the fans also like, and they're like, oh, I've never heard of them. I've never heard of them. I've never heard of them. And you realize just like how much fucking music there is, bro. Like you in a million years could not listen to everything. You couldn't even listen to everything with over 1 million monthly listeners, bro. Like there is just so much stuff out there. It is quite literally so possible to exist in your musical bubble for your entire life. Facts. Never listen to things in other genres or other countries or from other, you know, whatever. Like there's just so much, and it's all so different that like the things that rise to the top, they really are this amalgamation of elements that just make it as consumable as possible. Yeah, you know,
and you just kind of have to let it go and be free with it, because I think a lot of people do look at it as like, I want to make some of the best music ever. I want everyone to listen to it. It's like people are going to listen to it, but you just kind of have to understand that only like people that really enjoy your music are going to find you, regardless of how you go about it. They're going to find you, and once they find you, it's like, then you can start building on it. But you can only do that where if you're authentic to like the music that you make. Yeah, you know,
bro. I always think about the fact that like there's probably some of the best music ever being made right now that nobody's heard. Yeah. Like there's probably shit like there's probably like the next Michael Jackson somewhere in Missouri, and like we've never heard of them.
The next Beyonce, the next whoever is somewhere out there just either overthinking it. Because I put it into like perspective, like the next Michael Jackson now has access to social media, whereas like the original Michael Jackson was kind of like, his dad just kind of like, him and his brothers, they kind of like pushed them to, hey, do this, work on your craft. Every Sunday's rehearsals. I watched that movie. It was like, I don't know, 6 hours long or something.
The Jackson 5 movie?
Yeah. But yeah, they were pushing them, like they were rehearsing so much, and there was music constantly playing in the house. So like now thinking back to it, it's like they didn't really have any outside influence except the people they were watching, like James Brown and all those people. Whereas now, like, probably the next Michael Jackson is somewhere just like overthinking it, going on TikTok, seeing people that are way better than him at that age, and it's like, oh my God, I can't really do this and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's interesting to think about like our legends, if they had social media, would they still exist?
Yeah. And it makes you think like, like are the future legends out there right now trying? Like, are they trying to be seen and nobody's seeing them, bro? Like, I think about that just based on like how high our filter is for like good shit on the internet. People, I say this all the time, but people would swipe past the fucking Mona Lisa, bro. It doesn't matter. Like, you can be wildly talented, and never be found. And you know, there's like beauty in that. There's kind of a shitty part to that, but I think there is like an element of like it's really possible for the best stuff ever to never be found now, and it's really possible for like some of the most mid stuff to become huge. And you know, I think it's like a double-edged sword. It's all just take it as you will, but it is an interesting concept to think that like we could all be scrolling past the next James Brown right now.
Yeah, and you know what I find interesting? Like a lot of things that we consider mid, I do respect the artists, like the mid artists, like that people I would never call them mid artists, but like the mid artists, quote unquote. I do respect how selfless they are, because they promote their stuff
for sure,
regardless if we think it's mid or trash or whatever. They go out their way to like promote and like get their stuff seen because they believe in it and they enjoy it, and like they go like I just respect that, like regardless of what people think, at least they're trying to like get their stuff heard. And you know, I think a lot of artists that do have like a high technical ability in terms of like making music, like classically trained, and I went to school for this, and you know, I think a lot of them, they have this hesitation where it's like they never really go and like promote this stuff like selflessly.
100%.
Whereas like
totally
someone,
agree.
you know, it's like with someone who is kind of like, they just like took like a year just learning like YouTube tutorials and just like made some stuff that they really like in their bedroom. They go like, they promote their stuff and like they really believe in this, and they're like, oh, this is like the best thing ever, and like they put it out there. You know, they even get signed sometimes, and like they like, I don't know, they just like really, really go out their way to promote their stuff because they
same way.
Yeah, which is, I respect that a lot.
I think there's an aspect of that goes into the difference between finding something and then being told what it is. I think those are very different things. I think when you stumble into something, right, when you find something, it resonates and stays with you on a much more personal level than when you were told it. And even if you have like, you know, like let's say both of those categories start at this base level of interest, right? Like, so the person that learned music, they started at a base level of interest, and the person who found music, they also were at a base level of interest, and then because of that interest, they do different things, right? So because of one person's interest, they pursue like things on the internet and like YouTube videos, and like they talk to people about it. And then because of the other person's interest, they go to school about it. I think is very often, as soon as you go to school about it, somebody then is kind of telling you the correct way.
There is no correct way.
There is no correct way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, and I think once the well is poisoned in that regard, I think it can get hard to unwork that feeling that like if you're not making what these classical composers or what these professors or what these, you know, what this standard of musician is telling you or indicating that you should make, then you are somehow like inferior. And then a lot of those artists, I think, don't want to contribute to like what they perceive to be like all the shit coming up on TikTok that nobody is interested in, you know?
Yeah. It's like you could be the change though.
Yeah.
And on top of that too, it's just like, that's why I'm very wary of like sending my unreleased music out, because it's like, why am I sending it? I could just put it out, because I think there's a certain like power dynamic, not even a power dynamic, but when you do send your unreleased music out, it's like it takes away a lot from like the magic, because like sometimes like I'm making music, I'm enjoying it, I love the song, and then you send it out to someone, it's like, could you change this? Could you take that? It's like that takes away a lot from like how authentic it is to you. So I do feel like when you do like send your unreleased music out, it's like do it from a place of not like trying to gain approval. Yeah. You know, or gain a don't wait for someone to kind of say like this is good. Like if you feel like it's good, like once you make it and enjoy it, and it's like it's good, you don't need anyone to kind of validate it. Yeah.
I think that's one of the pros that comes from like approaching music making as a music fan, because I think you then have a really good filter for what is and is not something that you would listen to, and if you trust your taste, then
you trust your taste. Ooh, that's a bar.
If you trust your taste, you're like the number one consumer for that music that you're making. Therefore, like if you know, I think a pretty good margin and a pretty good metric for like, is this good or not? Just ask yourself, would I listen to it?
Yeah, would you listen to it?
Yeah,
and do that from a place of like
honesty,
no ego.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like, would I actually listen to this? And try and like incorporate it to your playlist, and just notice how you feel. Like I have a playlist where like all of my favorite songs from like different artists. I usually try and put my music in that playlist. So like randomly I'm going about my day and the song comes down. Like how do I feel? It's like, do I feel like it's out of place? Do I still have the same feeling like, oh my God, I love this song?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And that's usually a good metric for me. But I think my biggest strength and weakness is like I do trust my taste.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, like I'm very like, oh, this is how it's gonna be for me because I love it like this, and I just kind of go about it that way. But I do think if you are gonna send your music out, you should do it with someone that you trust their taste.
Yeah.
And just kind of like work like that. So it's important like when you're building a project and building like just like a creative project, maybe an album, EP, make sure you trust the people's taste.
Yeah.
Cause you don't want to put something out where it's like someone told you like you should change it, and like you put it out and like people don't like it, but then you put out like the version that you had, and like people are like, oh my God, this is like the best thing ever. It's so it's just things to think about when you're like working on your music and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was curious because you touched on it a bit earlier when you were talking about the Congo, but it's really like your background is so interesting because you've lived in 3 different countries, but now you told me the other day that you're planning on eventually moving to the States, so that'd be 4th.
Brooklyn.
So that's a crazy amount of wisdom and a crazy amount of different perspectives. So I was curious, like doing all that and going from the order was Congo to South Africa to Canada. Okay, gotcha. So doing that, what do you think like are the biggest lessons that you've learned from having this kind of experience where you've lived in all these different places and experienced all these different people? What do you think is the wisdom in that, and what do you think have been the biggest lessons you learned?
I think that's my biggest advantage. Music.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah. Because my biggest lesson I learned from it is music is very universal. Like I've seen Congolese people that don't know a lick of English vibe out to DMX and just like feel that they feel the energy and they feel like the authentic vibe to DMX. So I've seen like people just like Adele, like they don't speak English at all, but they sing an Adele word for word. So I was like, oh, so
wow, that's fascinating.
I know, right? So it's like it's the feeling behind it. So I always looked at it like, if you're being authentic, it's gonna translate regardless. Like there's some Bad Bunny songs I listen to and like I don't know what he's saying, but
it bangs.
I'm vibing now, So it's like such a universal. Like I think people don't know how universal it is. They think like, especially like let's say for example you're from the West Coast, like your music ends and lives and dies with like the West Coast. Like you only know what you know. But like once you travel to like these third world countries and you see like a 50 Cent poster on the wall, I'm telling you, bro, it's insane. It's like, wow, like 50 Cent is all the way down here. And like you feel this like, it's just the feeling that the music translates. And I think growing up in places like Congo, we have our own music scene, we have our own thing, and just noticing just how it's embraced around the world, like different for example, Congolese music is very big in like the francophone countries like France, Belgium, and stuff like that. Noticing how it's embraced there. Like a lot of them don't even know sometimes like what the song is saying, but like they're vibing out to it.
There's a huge relationship between a lot of those countries, right?
A huge relationship, because a lot of the immigrants, like Congolese immigrants, moved to those type of countries and they spread that music. That's how Afrobeats also blew up in different markets, because like a lot of Nigerians move and
to France, right?
France, Belgium, London.
Is that just a geographical thing?
I think it's interesting. I think it goes back to like colonization and all that, where a lot of like these countries did offer citizenship to a lot of like these countries early on. I know Belgium did that for Congo early on, so a lot of Congolese moved there.
Makes sense.
But I think it comes back to that, and just like a lot of people going out for like refugees and stuff like that. But yeah, the music is like a universal language, and I think also South Africa, I really want to touch on that, because South Africa is like, in my opinion, has like I don't want to say the best music industry in the world, but I think it has one of the most interesting music industries in the world.
Why is that?
Because every genre gets incorporated into South African music. So like they'll take hip hop and make South African hip hop. They'll take like Afrobeats and have a version of Afrobeats. They'll take like everything could be like incorporated, and they have like their own version of it. They take it like they'll take it and make like they'll make it authentic to them.
Wow.
So it's like, it's always, whereas in like other countries will just take it as it is,
yeah,
and just kind of go about it that way. But South Africans take it and they embrace it and they love it, but they also make it authentic to them, where it's like
that's very open-minded.
I know, right? And it's beautiful, and it's like, so there's a lot of South African rappers that I really enjoy, and hip hop has a beautiful movement down there. So it's like different artists. One of my favorites is AKA, and he has like his own thing where he just like, it's South African music, but it's also hip hop.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one thing I can't really explain. You just kind of have to be there to experience it. And now they have like their own Amapiano thing that's kind of blowing up, and like, it's just beautiful. I think Nigeria is also like the same way, where they embrace it and they create their own versions to it, and I think it's beautiful. Like even R&B, pop, they take it and embrace it and create their own versions to it, and it just shows you like how music is universal and how we translate in different countries. Like every country is very, very different with how they embrace certain genres.
Yeah. It always blows my mind. Like it's unbelievable, because like I'll feel the same thing. I always think about how like, dude, like if I hear something and whether or not I relate to what they're saying, maybe it's just me being selfish, but I so often take the artist's experience and I'll project it onto my own. It becomes such a personal thing that I don't know how it couldn't be. It couldn't be that universal. And even just on like a sonics level, right? Like even away from the lyrics, I think there's almost nothing that's as universal as like a bounce, or something as universal as like a bass line or whatever it is, you know? I often think about this in the lens of like how I feel at concerts, and I'm a very like I think the main place my love of music comes from is live music. Like it's probably like my number one thing. And I think like going to so many shows growing up, and just like every time if I was really into something, just like not being able to stop myself from moving in some regard, like having this physical reaction to the music that's very similar to like how universal it is. I think it's just so human. It's so like biological. It's so hard to explain, but it's just so human, and it's just only a uniquely human experience that we all share. It's one of the very few, I think.
One of very, very few. I also think a lot of this music is connected, like jazz is connected to hip hop, 100%. You know, so it's just like it's expression. I think a lot of things, just because it is connected, I think history repeats itself too. Totally. Because jazz was big way back then, and it spread around the world, and it had its moment. And hip hop came from jazz, and it did the same thing. And it just keeps being connected. Like Afrobeats, dancehall, Amapiano, all these things are like the drums. People feel the drums like they feel familiar because it's connected to something they didn't know already. So yeah, that's kind of like what it is. It just showed me. It opened my eyes to a lot. And that's why I really prioritize the production of a song over the lyrics. Which is weird to say, especially because I make very lyrical rap music. But the production of the song,
it guides it very often.
It guides it, and it's gonna travel faster than the lyrics. I think people move to the production first before they move to the lyrics. So it might be subtle. It might be like a G major. I know G major chords, for some reason, I learned that like recently. I know G major chords move me, like emotional wise. But people don't know, because like I said, people don't really know music theory or anything like that. Like I barely know music theory, but if you find out like different keys, different moods and stuff like that, so production travels faster than like lyrics. So
that's true. I mean, like one of the new songs on the new project that you dropped, Hold My Liquor, the production of that song, I think, is what immediately hits me on it. Like the strings on it, like it kind of feels like a horror movie. I think it's like a cool example of it. But like that one for sure, like you're saying, like I mean, the verses on it are incredibly dense, but simultaneously, I think the production on that one does hit me first. Because it's almost it's kind of just like painting the soundscape for everything else you're about to say. You know.
When I try and so there's different ways I go about like making a record like that. I try and make every record very cinematic, because I just love cinema and film. So I always try and figure out like what is the scene, and just like
interesting.
What are we doing? What's the vibe? What do I feel like? How do I want to translate that? And there's certain producers. So I have like a list of producers that I go for certain things. The producer on that is No Mercy. I worked with him on a record on my last project, Villain's Theme. And I know he always has very big production.
Yeah.
Very string, very like it's like an orchestra, but like very hip hop too.
Yeah.
And I know he always has like very horror. I don't know. It just feels like something's coming. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I always go to him when I'm trying to do something cinematic and something very in your face.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was going for. So Hold My Liquor is just like a commentary song about like industry stuff. And just like I also wanted to have it be a little muddy. So it's kind of like
there's some dirt to it.
Yeah, it's just like very chaotic a little bit, which is what I was going for. So it's like it's interesting just to how I go about like ideas to creation and just the whole process. So yeah, that's a really interesting song.
Yeah. No, I like it's definitely one of my favorite ones of the new project. Kind of like, I guess, circling back to what we were talking about with like all the different places you've lived and stuff. Kind of like maneuvering that and going through all of them. What do you think are the differences in terms of like the musical inspiration that came from them? And then also like which one did you officially start rapping in? And then how did you kind of change stylistically as you went to these different places? Like what do you think they contribute? Thank you. What do you think they contributed to your musical style?
Congo gave me my foundation. I always say this, Congo gave me my foundation.
That's where you started?
No, that's not where I started. So
gotcha.
The story is like Congo, it made me fall in love with music. I'll say that because Congolese music is usually like 9 minutes, 10 minutes per song. Yeah.
All of them?
Most of them.
That's
95%.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
They don't. So Congolese music, we make music for environments. So we make music for like a party. So the first half could be like super chill, a ballad. Second half could be more upbeat. Second half is like crazy because now the party is going. And it's like one song could be like that, but majority of the Congolese artists usually 10 minutes. That's why Congolese music hasn't translated, like for example like an Afrobeat, which is still the traditional 3-minute. Congolese music is really, really long because they make music for environments. It could be
interesting.
I'm telling you, it's crazy. Like Congolese music
that's so different.
Yeah, it gave me the foundation of just creating music for environments and scenes and specific places. And sometimes it could literally be the same BPM for like the 10 minutes. Yeah. It could be weddings. Yeah, we make music for weddings, festivals, parties. Never really to just kind of sit in your car and vibe out. Yeah. It's really a gathering of things. So that's Congolese music. And then South African music changed my perspective on how I go about it. It kind of gave me my structure. That's why I started rapping. That's why I really fell in love with it, because South Africa is one of those countries that it has its own music, its own industry and whatnot, but it's also exposed to American industries, like everything else. So I was able to kind of like take in American music, South African music, and still have my foundation of Congolese music. Yeah. So it gave me my structure, and it helped me like start writing. So I started off like singing a little bit, because at that time, I don't know what it was, but it was a lot of, it was like 2010, so it was like a lot of like dance music, European music. So I started like just writing for pop songs and just like being like a songwriter, singing here and there. And then 2012 changed because that's when I started rapping. Yeah. It just changed because like that was the 2010s era of hip hop. So we had like the J. Cole's, Kendrick's, Big Sean, Wale. They just changed my perspective. I was like, oh, so I can make rap music and I can also be I love like the structure of like how they would make, because sometimes they would sing, they would like, play around with it instead of just the traditional rapping. I was like, oh, I really love this. And I fell in love with like making music like that, and that's where like Jeff was born, just like making rap music, sometimes incorporating different like melodies and stuff like that. And then also that's when I started producing stuff, making beats and all that. And then when I moved to Canada, that kind of, it just solidified everything. Yeah. It gave me like, that's why I want to say I really understood like where I wanted to go next. So it just kind of gave me like my jump off of like, okay, now I have all this influences and now this is where I'm going next. Like it gave me my direction basically.
Interesting.
Yeah. It gave me, because in South Africa, I won't lie, I didn't know what direction I was going to go. I just had so much music everywhere. So much influences. So I was like, do I go this side? Do I go that side?
Sometimes that can be overwhelming.
Very overwhelming. Yeah. But when I got to Canada, it simplified a lot. I was like, okay, I'm a rapper, I'm this, I'm that, and this is where I'm going.
Yeah, it sounds like it allowed you, like in South Africa, you had all these influences and you were so surrounded by it. But then it sounds like when you got to Canada, you were able to kind of hone in on like what was you.
Yeah, what was me authentically, and just kind of like, I was also older at that time, but it was just kind of gave me like, this is where I'm going and this is where I want to be. Like, I appreciate all my influences. And it also gave me an edge just because like Congolese music, there's like a certain guitar riff that's not really done in like Western music. It's like it just gave me like I usually try and mimic my flows to that guitar riff, like the that's crazy. So a lot of people look at my accent and everything is very different from like the way I speak, from the way I rap. It's just like a very different accent. The way I even go into different pockets, it's just like, it's not traditional rap music. I mean, it is, but it's also just like a 3% change a little bit.
And I think one thing I noticed a lot about your music is like from song to song, just how different the cadence is. And a lot of it. Like that's a huge thing, and I think people have talked about your music, like have pointed that out to me as well. I feel like that's long been like a noted thing. Is like your cadence on a lot of different songs is just vastly different. So were you saying you think that has something to do with your accent, like just having like these kind of mix of things?
Yeah, it's very intentional. I think because most times when I was rapping, I was trying to. I don't know. It didn't sound like me, and then once I just embraced like my accent and just the way I speak and just kind of like the inflections I have, with different words. Like I say different words very differently, so I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna rap like that too. And I think the main thing that stands out for a lot of people is either the flow or like the way I say words, or like the different inflections. And a lot of people try and be like, oh, this kind of sounds like, they kind of try and put it in a box, which I understand, because like most times when you don't understand something, you try and like simplify it and be like, okay, this kind of reminds me of something, you know. But yeah, like the inflections, the way I go about it, the flows are very. There's this genre in South Africa called gom. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but they have different like. There's this artist called Shoma Josie. She's like the perfect example of this. Like her pockets, her flows are crazy. She has the song called John Cena, actually.
John Cena.
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's like crazy. The different pockets she's in. So I love those pockets, and I just try and do those pockets in like hip hop drums instead of like doing in those drums, and like the guitar riff, like the Congolese riff of like the, and I try and do that with like my flow sometimes, just to kind of like have it authentic to me. I think the next project, I want to push it a little bit where my music is very sample based, so a lot of soul songs and American soul, but the next one I really want to sample a lot of like the influences that I grew up on, South African music, Congolese music, and just kind of honing on more what makes me, you know.
That's always like an interesting thing to take a step back and try to realize and dissect, because it's so like innate to you. It's very native, you know. Like,
very, very native.
It's very much like a part of you, and like flying too close to the sun, it makes it hard to realize that. It's hard to realize why people like what they're hearing when you're the one who's making it.
Ooh,
you know,
that's a bar. It's hard to realize because most times you're in the driver's seat. And you're just trying to get to like the destination. And I think a lot of people, you know, they just kind of like. It's easy to observe and it's easy to criticize than to create. So a lot of people,
that's true.
A lot of people are just like, it's easier to kind of be like the audience, just kind of be like, point things out like, okay, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. But like being on stage and being like the guy is very different. So I think I'll say is once you step out, just make sure it's like authentic to you. So even if they don't like it, as long as it was you, it's like cool.
It's also really easy to critique and not offer a solution. That's like a really easy thing to do, I think, as well. From like the outside perspective, is just to like say you dislike something but not say why. Like, because that doesn't require very much thought. It's pretty easy to be like, I don't fuck with that.
Very
and someone's
passively.
like, you know, like, why? And you're just like, whatever. Like, it's kind of like a non-starter way of helping somebody, you know? It's like you're not really doing anything for someone there.
I think music is one of like the unique places that happens mainly, just because like some people take they'll be like, they don't like an artist. It's not necessarily like the music, it's just like, I don't like the artist, so it's like cut off the music, everything. It barely happens in like anything else except like the entertainment industry. So it's like, I just don't like the way he talks. So it's like, boom.
It's like, okay.
Yeah. It's like, for example, I don't know, maybe in like a podcast, it could be like, you know, I just don't like how he gives questions.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, I'm done. You know,
It's
stuff
for
like
sure.
that.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's just like little things. And I guess they valid in their like statements because it's like they are responsible for like what they consume, right?
Yeah.
But like sometimes you just have to like show up authentically you, like 100% you, and let people kind of decide like if they're gonna like it or if they're not. Sometimes it works in your favor, and like sometimes it's like,
Yeah. And I think doing that is like one of the only ways to pave like a real like just long-term success plan. It's like if you began being somebody that you're not going to gradually transition into yourself.
Yeah.
That's not how that works. You just kind of have to you have to begin being yourself. You have to like from the jump, from the get, like the only vision, the only picture of yourself that you're putting out there is one that's real, one that's really you. Because eventually, just the longer you're within this and the more eyes are on you, you'll just be seen through time and time and time again.
Over and over.
You know, like you need to just put forward like the most honest and truest and most authentic version of yourself. Because if you're not, people are understanding. Like no one is confused about it. You know.
Yeah. Also, just to add to that, I think it's also like a freeing thing for me because here's another thing to add to that is like you could do everything right and it still not work.
100%, dude. Yeah.
So once you realize that, it's just like all you have to do is show up. You could literally take the right steps, do the right thing, have the right meetings, release the pop friendly song, radio, anything. You could do everything right and it still not work. So it's kind of like just showing up is like the main thing that you have to do, because once you show up, it's like I think that's like the main goal. I think that's the end goal actually. Instead of like having the end goal something you can't control, I'll say like something you can't control, just like showing up. It's like probably like the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I think like deducing this down to like that variable can be very helpful sometimes.
Very helpful.
Like just like kind of taking away everything else, all the external factors that you can't control, and just levying yourself into this place where it's like what I can control is that I'm here and that I'm showing up.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make sure that I do that every single day.
And that you're enough.
Yeah.
And that you're enough. You don't need any validation. You know. So I think that's like the biggest thing that artists struggle with, and it's really hard. People take years and years and years and years and years to understand that specific part. They chase labels, they chase like just so much stuff just to get to that point, because everyone is going to get to that point eventually. It's going to depend on you if it's going to take 10 years, 15, 20. But you're going to get to that point. And once you get there, you're either going to kick yourself and be like, damn, I should have, luckily for a lot of, that's why I say I think I quit, but low-key I might just have taken a break.
Man. I mean, you came back, so I guess you did.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things happen really, really fast for me.
Yeah.
Really fast, because I quit, like the last time I quit was 2021.
Damn, okay.
And then the next year.
Where did you officially start?
Like professionally?
Sorry, I was yawning when I said it. I said officially.
Officially, like because I used to drop on SoundCloud here and there during high school, but the first time I ever dropped on Spotify was 2019.
Gotcha. Okay.
I took a year with that up until 2020 something. 2020, I want to say late November. I was like, okay, cool, this is fire. I did another stint in 2021, and after that, I was like, you know what? Not really. I'm not really feeling it. 20 streams per song. It's like it's really hard, especially when you put money, studio time, and all that. And I was recording in my bedroom, so I was just investing in like buying microphones, which
and
is really, time. Audio equipment is really expensive too. But yeah, I quit in 2021. It didn't take long for me to come back, about 4 months. I came back 2022. I dropped a song in April, and then I dropped another song in July 29th called Where's the Confetti. And then that changed everything. I think after that it was like it just went from like 0 to 100 in a span of like 2-3 months.
How was it happening?
It was, so I had the TikTok page. I was still promoting that a lot, and connecting with different influencers, content creators. And at that time, you know what's interesting? At that time, a lot of influencers were coming up, like music influencers. So they were coming up. I was coming up at the same time as them. So shout out to Annabelle. I saw her like really, really early on. She was still like, I forgot what she was doing, like a series like something says some. I don't know what she was doing, but she was something about like what your music taste says about you. That was like the series.
I remember that. Yeah,
she was doing that really,
the playlisting stuff.
Yeah,
hella early, dude.
So I was doing that too, just playing around with it. There's another one, Elsie. Shout out to her. She was doing a lot of the like really early breakdowns and stuff like that. Damon, he was doing a lot of just like showing music, new artists. There's another one I'm forgetting. Jabran, he was cool. There was another guy, like, you know, the sample guy that does that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, yeah, him.
I've seen that guy on TikTok.
Just like a bunch of them. So I was kind of like in that class, but just like a bit underneath. I was not as popular, but I was just doing that music. But I was building like a strong community. I had a Discord and everything. And then, so once I put out my song, I still did it in a way where it was like not really me. It was just kind of like, hey, I'm promoting this song, playlisting and stuff like that. And it grew faster. It wasn't 20 streams, but it was like maybe 1,000, 2,000, maybe like every week or so. And then eventually it got to a point where it was like people started reaching out. So like even like the marketing people, the Indify people, and like just people just started reaching out like, oh, how can we help? How can we do this? And this one I was like, oh, something's happening. Yeah. So eventually after that, I transitioned to like a full-on blown out like artist on my page. Like, this is me now. This is the artist. I switched profile picture, everything, and I kept the old content up just to show people the journey,
the trajectory. Yeah,
you can still literally scroll down and see it. I switched. I had like a little more confidence. Started posting a lot on IG now. Building the Instagram. I started posting like 2 times, 3 times a day, because like I said, there was no community in Ottawa where I could like start performing and stuff. So I was literally just going to internet, going to school.
You had to tap into the online community.
Reaching out to influencers to do post about the song and stuff like that. And eventually I got some funding for it. I was like, okay, cool. Now I have a little bit of money. Literally just double down on it. Yeah. Paying influencers, doing this, like just doubling down. And then I think one thing that separated me from a lot of artists that came after that had viral songs is December 20, I dropped the project. And the project, after I dropped the project, February 2023 is when like the Where's the Confetti like just exploded. And every time people went to Where's the Confetti, they went to the project too. So a lot of my music was still like growing too. It was like, oh, okay, cool. So people will go into like the next song and the next song and the next song, and like other songs were blowing up now. And it was like, okay, cool. I kind of get it.
Music was there.
The
eyes weren't.
So it wasn't like where I was kind of scrambling to find another record, and I didn't know where the Confetti was gonna go, but I was just like, something told me to drop a project. So once I dropped the project, I feel like that solidified like my supporters and like the fan base and whatnot. And then 2023 was the year like, I want to say like my first official professional year. Finally got a manager, finally got a lawyer, and then I did my first show, and that was like, then 2024, which was last year, and then 2025. It's just like still growing, still understanding like different how the music business works and stuff like that. Not trying to sign too early, not doing this, understanding, having conversation with your lawyers, meeting different artists, building friendships, building relationships, and going about it that way. Yeah,
that's really beautiful, bro. It's very interesting that you can be such a big fan from the outside and have no understanding about the actual industry side of it until you're like actively within it. Because it's so gate-kept, man. It's so like, I don't know, I feel like nobody talks about it unless you're within it.
Facts. I think I got really lucky, especially meeting like really dope creators, and a lot of my influencer friends that would also make like similar content. They'll get a lot of record labels would reach out to them, and I would notice just like
they do promo.
They'll do. I was like, okay. So like that was not like an authentic moment, but it was like they paid for that. So I was like, okay, cool. So it's not as like they're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Like, you have to invest in yourself and promote yourself, ads and doing this, like creating moments and doing. I was like, oh, I kind of get it now. So once I understood that,
it's all smoke and mirrors.
I just started having a more business mindset, and once that was it, I was so like locked in. It was like, oh, I got it.
It changed everything.
Everything, because I always thought it was like you get lucky. It's like you're not really lucky. You have to kind of create your luck. You have to put yourself in the places and then let the people kind of decide.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Ooh, yeah, I
think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
Like, I think luck exists for sure, but when your luck comes, if you had not put in the amount of time that was required before to be able to seize that opportunity, the luck like might as well never have came, because it's like if you can't take advantage of it, it doesn't matter. And the only way you're going to be able to take advantage of it is if you're prepared from the prior work that you put in, you know?
Yeah. I think I was like really prepared too, because once I saw like 1,000 people listen to my song, like Where's the Confetti, the 1,000 streams like the first month, and I was like, that's the biggest amount I ever had in my life. So it's like, oh, let me just make more songs. Yeah. So by the time like December came, I had a good amount of like songs, and I just dropped a project. And so it was like the preparation just met the
opportunity.
Yeah. And it worked out, and like it just, I don't know, I just skipped a lot of steps that I thought I was gonna have to do, because once I quit, it was like also out of frustration that like, oh my God, I don't think I have the energy to do all these steps of like open mics and doing this and connecting, networking. Because once it happened off of me, like a lot of the things that I thought I was gonna have to go out and do, a lot of things came to me. Yeah. So finding like managers and
you should need the first step. Yeah.
So that was a beautiful moment that I don't take for granted. So I always look back on it and just kind of like the knowing, it kind of validated myself a little bit, just kind of like understanding like you did that, you know, from your bedroom. Yeah. So you could do it with a couple more.
Figure it out.
Yeah, you could figure it out.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Jeff, this was a really amazing conversation.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, bro. We covered like a lot of incredibly interesting things, and I think there's a lot of a lot of game to soak up in this one, man. Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to ask you before I let you go, if you had one message you could impart upon people from your music, like one thing that you hope people got when they listen to your music, what do you think that would be?
Not just my music, but for myself as a person, and just like my career-wise, I'll say you become what you think about as a person. You become what you think about.
Interesting.
You become what you think about. So if you think good about yourself, you're gonna be good. But if you think negatively, you attract what you are. Yeah, you attract what you are. That's well said.
Yeah. I love that, bro. Jeff, thanks for doing this, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I really, really love the way your brain works. You're a really well thought out individual that has incredible opinions and knowledge about stuff, and I appreciated the conversation.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. I love to talk, so.
Yeah, you should do more, bro. You're a good talker.
Thank you, man.
Tell them where they could listen, where they could stream, they could find you. I know you have a headlining show coming up at the Mercury Lounge in New York, correct?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I have a show coming up, Mercury Lounge in New York, and so we're trying to do something for my supporters. You know how the Spotify Wrap they have the Spotify Wrap at the end of the year. So a lot of my supporters, usually I'll be in like the top 5 listening. So we're trying to do something where it's kind of like if I was in your top 5 or your top 10, you could come in for free.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. So just bring your screenshots and stuff. So
that's sick.
Yeah, and we're trying to like anybody else can come. You can pay for a ticket. You don't have to be like a Jeff fan or anything. If you just want to come to a show, you could pay for tickets. My Instagram is the Loner Jav, and the link is in the bio. You can check out the tickets. But yeah, the Loner Jav on everything. The Loner Jav on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. The Loner Jav, Jav on Spotify. And yeah, thank you for having me, man. It was a really good talk.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, man.
All right, music matters.